Okay, I just discovered the bug that I talked about earlier also works when changing sphere of influence. So that means when doing that, I'm going to have to start getting out of recording when doing a sphere of influence change, because it crashed when trying to do that. Fortunately, I didn't lose the flight or anything. Okay, get rid of that alarm and start planning our orbit insertion burn. First, let's move it back towards periapsis. Okay, 129. About a good 40-kilometer periapsis after this burn. Alright, we'll go ahead and schedule this. Let's see. It shouldn't be more than a minute or so. And let's find the moon. There's Kerbin. There's the moon. And let's time warp down. Okay, maneuver time. Turn our nav lights back on. Oh, they are on. Okay. Locate the maneuver node, which should be somewhere close to retrograde. Okay. T-minus 27 seconds. I'm going to give this about T-minus 15. I figure that should be about right. And then I burn late from what I said. But it turns out to be just about right. I am so glad that I've got the aviation lights mod. It makes it possible to see stuff you can't otherwise see, like your ship on the dark side of whatever. Alright, we have orbit. Now we could go for a circularization burn over here at periapsis, but I'm thinking that since that is on the sunlit side of the moon, it would be better to plan a landing. How much are we doing here in the way of fuel? 2253 meters per second. That's 1804 of it in this stage. I think we've got enough. That's enough for a deceleration, for a landing, possibly part of the liftoff. And the 449 should be enough to get back to Kerbin. I'm going to go for a landing, say, I'm going to put it here, planning to touch down actually right here where the cursor is, trying to allow for the moon's rotation. We'll just put in a maneuver that cancels all of the horizontal velocity, fully realizing this is not necessarily the most efficient way to land. But I find it personally a whole lot less nerve-wracking than trying to glide in horizontally and do a suicide burn. Alright, let's find this node. lined up on it. Warp around close. Figuring I'm probably going to have to adjust where I've got it plotted on account of the moon's rotation. Kind of want to come down on someplace relatively flat. Yeah. That looks like it ought to be better. Okay. Let's get lined up again. "47-second burn." Burn at just a little bit after T-minus 30. And hopefully come down around here. We'll see. Or maybe it's over here. Right about now. And I really could have done without that. Okay, burn is done, and our descent stage is empty. Alright. That means we don't have enough juice for both a landing and a liftoff. And that means I think it's time to abort the landing. We don't have quite enough ship to do a landing, so now we turn prograde, actually pitching up from prograde. We stage that away and use our ascent stage to go back to Kerbin. And what is our orbit data? Stop right there. Delete this maneuver node. And let's get to about here. No, how about let's just, no, not at apoapsis. That's too far around the curve. Alright. Let's plot a moon escape. Okay, our curve and periapsis doesn't look too good there. Let's bring this back here. Okay, that's no good. That won't do at all. Okay, by moving it forward in time, we're doing better. Well, 315 meters a second to give us a direct return. If we go a little more, we can get into an orbit and then come back. That looks like it'll work. Okay, 20 minutes, 53 seconds. Schedule the alarm. We do a 12-second burn. And so this is Jeb's second time at the moon. There won't be a landing this time either, but third time's the charm. Meanwhile, we return and go back to the drawing board for design. Okay. Down to T-6 and burn this. And Jeb burns for home. Okay. Delete this. Curb and periapsis 112 kilometers, not bad. All right. Catch up with you in low Kerbal orbit. Okay. Jeb is on his way back in, coming in close to periapsis here, getting ready to do a capture burn, a burn to reduce the apoapsis down to something reasonable. And then he will try once again to target the Space Center for the return. It's time to burn. And sadly, there really isn't much to see on this side of the planet, even with the navigation lights on the ship. At least you can spot where it is, but there is no scenery to speak of, except for the stars, of course. Okay, that's going back up. Looks like we have a good orbit. 101 by 118. And of course, the Space Center is in darkness. So as before, we're going to warp around until it's in daylight. All right, it's been a little while, a whole bunch of orbits later. And the Kerbal Space Center is just nicely coming into daylight, which means it is morning there. So let's set up a maneuver about here. And do a retro burn. Just move it forward. How much are we talking here? 101 meters a second. Well, that's a good thing because we've got 200 meters a second worth of fuel left. Well, 207. So that should work out just about right. All right. Let's get Jeb pointed in the right direction. Let's go ahead and set an alarm and warp ahead to it. Okay. We have our alarm. And we're doing things in darkness again. At least we can see the ship against all the dark. Alright. Warp down just a little closer to burn time. I'm thinking this burn won't take very long. And let's do it. Okay. Alright. That put us, it looks like it's reasonable, so let's warp ahead until we have atmosphere entry interface, I guess you would call it. Go ahead and pull in the solar panels. We've got more than enough battery for the rest of this trip. Nice sunrise over Kerbal. Getting close to the fireworks part of the ride, and yeah, that's pulled an awful lot to the west, so I'm going to pull over here to a prograde attitude and burn some fuel to push it back to the east. Okay, that's it for our fuel. Alright. So wherever Jeb comes down, that's where he's coming down. We can go ahead and turn back to the retrograde-ish and lose that lower stage. Alright, Jeb's about ready to come down here in the ocean, which is just fine, really. We'll just time warp this down. All right, very good. Okay, I'm gonna head off to the tracking station, recover the flight, and we'll stop into the VAB to see what we can do to this thing to give it a better chance of actually doing a landing. Alright, I'm looking over this lander here and I'm thinking that maybe what I need to do is scrap the whole thing and start over from scratch with a new design. Let's see, so we'll keep the capsule and we'll pretty much replace almost everything else. Alright, FLT 400 fuel tank for the return trip. And an LV 909 to power that part of the flight. Okay. That's the easy part. Alright, for the descent stage, Obviously the descent stage needed more get up and go, especially if it's going to provide part of the delta V for the transfer, which actually I would kind of prefer it didn't have to do that, but that's alright. Let's see. Alright, this will probably be the better way to do this. Let's rotate around so that we're not blocking where a ladder is going to have to go. Alright. 4 more FLT 400s. Put them up a little bit like that. Alright. And more LV909s. And one here. If I can grab a hold of it. Alright. Okay, this way the outboard engines fire for landing. LV909 can fire either when these are exhausted or during liftoff, depending on how much delta V is remaining when we get to that point. And yes, we need landing legs. That should work. And let's do something with some ladders. Just one row of them. All right. Okay, our guy now has a way down onto the surface and back up into the ship. Now let's see, what is our information here? What is that, 18 tons? I can't read that quite. I never read that quite the same as if I'm looking at the numbers I can get from this one. Yeah, 18 tons, okay. This MG doesn't look like tons or anything to me. It's like million grams or megagrams or something like that. Alright. And this one has to, these stages have to function in moon gravity, and it looks to me like they are more than sufficient to the task. Alright. Now, FLT 800. And let's give it the LTV 45 for power. Alright, now looking at the bottommost stage, switch it to Kerbal values. Not a big deal because this engine should not fire until after the ship is in orbit. Alright. Now, let's do something about getting this whole mass, some 24 tons, into orbit. Alright. I believe we have an adapter of some form here. Oh, that's one. No, that's the tiny one. There we go. Not quite critically necessary, but why not? Okay, let's see here. We'll put a skipper at this stage. Down below here, 2 tanks of fuel and a mainsail. Alright, now down here we're going to need the winglets. Up here, I believe, is where we're going to need some reaction wheel authority. I'm going to put 2 of these modules on here because I want to make absolutely... Wait a minute. No, not quite like that. One of them will go down below here. That way, when that extra amount of reaction authority is no longer needed, it will fall away. Alright. That gives us winglets and plenty of reaction wheel power for moving things around. Alright. Let's throw some launch stability enhancers on here. Pull the whole thing out of the ground a little bit. Throw some nav lights on here. off of there. I'll throw a blue nav light over here by the hatch. And oh yeah, that reminds me. Landing lights. Let's go ahead and use the brighter ones just to make sure that we can see the ground coming up at us. Alright. Action groups. Number 5. Toggle the nav lights. Number 1. Oh, I have to put the solar panels back on. Alright, we'll use a pair of 1x6s. And a pair of batteries. Alright. Now action group the solar panels. Alright. I think we have something here. We'll call this Lander 2. And we'll head out to the launch pad and see if this thing is going to get anywhere. Looks like it will get off the ground. And I'm thinking it should also get to orbit. We'll find out in a moment.